Yo, what's up? This video is a Drumeo video that I'm about to watch, and although this is not a paid sponsorship at all with Drumeo, I'd just like to point you towards a podcast episode, an interview that I did with Jared Falk, the founder of Drumeo. You can find that over at my website or NZ Drummer Podcast, across all the podcast listening platforms. And you can listen to Jared making fun of me on the interview. With that said, let's get into this video. Hey, what is up YouTube? Andrew Rooney here, and we are back with... We're gonna be back with some more Patreon picks because we have a growing list of them. But today, it's one of my picks. One of my... probably someone who's becoming one of my favorite drummers, Mr. Larnell Lewis. Now, a lot of you would have seen on the previous, I think I've done 2 Larnell Lewis videos now, and on the previous one where he learnt that song ridiculously quick and he showed his chart writing process, which was, that's essential viewing. Everybody should be watching that video, and especially the original video without me talking all over the top of it. It just made me want to check out basically anything he's doing, and I just want to jump on it because he's just one of these people. He's so vibrant. He's got such a great sound. He's so musical, and the ideas and his way of giving information is just very clear and very honest. So, hey, I wanted to jump on this video. As always, if you dig what I'm doing here and you want to support the channel, please be sure to subscribe, like, hit the notification bell, and leave a comment with anything else I should check out. If you want to fast track a reaction request, you can hit the Patreon and we can get that done. So without further ado, so we can sort of perhaps unlock some of Larnell Lewis's secrets, we're going to check out Secret Weapon, his hybrid snare tom. Let's check it out.
Snare tom. Whatever label you want to give it, just know it exists, and it can exist in different ways. This is a sound, a tool, a drum, a concept that I actually got from playing in the band Snarky Puppy, and specifically from hanging around Robert Sput Seawright. So big up to my big bro, Uncle Sput. We're gonna talk a little bit about what this is, how I get the sound, why I use this sound, and just maybe encouraging you to explore it.
Probably worth noting at this point, I'm not a very big gimmick guy. I'm not saying this is a gimmick, so I'm always very hesitant about these things, but with Larnell Lewis's name attached to it, I'm not expecting a gimmick. I'm expecting it to be very purposeful and really awesome. And I probably should mention the snare that I so proudly got on my last video. I was very excited. Hold up, I've got to see. Is that my snare? I'm pretty sure that is my snare. Turned out it's not actually his snare. His snare was a Yamaha recording custom, like my snare, but his is the stainless steel, and it's a slightly bigger one.
That's what she said.
So hey, got that a little bit wrong. And let's keep going.
What's going on here is I'm using a 14 by 7-inch snare drum. This specifically is a Yamaha Oak snare, silver sparkle. I believe this is Dave's personal baby, so thank you very much for letting me have the chance to explore with it. I really appreciate it. Right now, with this drum, I'm actually using a hydraulic head on top from Evans, and also the Hazy 300 on the bottom as well. The hydraulic head is actually a 2-ply head with a layer of oil in it. So if you're familiar with the 70s sound of music, that was a part of it, just getting that really kind of tubby, thick sound. Now, knowing Sput and knowing the kinds of things he's into, it totally makes sense. And I know there were a ton of drummers that were doing it before, but he was my main point of contact for connecting with the sound. The way that I go about achieving this sound is having a thicker head on top helps, and a regular snare head on the bottom is very important. Not a 1-ply head like an Ambassador or at G1 clear, for example, because you will not get the sensitivity of the snares when you turn the snare drum on, like this, right? You won't get that sound. It's very important to get this. So
That's a really good point. I think tuning, I think I'm going to have to do a tuning video, perhaps even a tuning course, because in my opinion, tuning is something that's so misunderstood and it gets so overcomplicated. And he's making really good points here. So the hydraulic, I've never used a hydraulic, but they're quite thick heads, and they're, it's the kind of head where you don't want a lot of overtone. If you put like a single ply head on the top of a snare drum, it's going to be quite ringy. It's going to be good for some things, and you can still dampen that down. But the hydraulic heads are a real statement of intent of basically like a dead sound, which is going to sound really good as a tom, which is what we're doing here. And as Larnell said, the thin head on the bottom is pretty crucial for snare sensitivity.
So if you're not getting this, find your local music store, right? You know what to do. As far as the approach to tuning, I usually make sure I start with the drum head really, really loose and low. In fact, I can press my hand in the middle and see a bunch of creases. I start to tune it up a little bit by little, just each lug, making sure whatever, either cross pattern or just like counterclockwise, clockwise, whatever you choose, but making sure that I'm getting the wrinkles out. From that point, I'm starting to find a couple of lugs that are in the right pitch zone that I want, and I just tighten them up a little bit and make them sound similar. After that, I also make sure that the bottom head is not too loose or too tight, right?
Another good point. Sorry to just keep stopping it, but this is gold. I can't believe we're getting this open insight into Larnell Lewis's tuning. And it's really interesting how he's not overthinking it. Don't see any gadgets here. Well, no gadgets yet. And I'm not against TuneBot or the other timer tension watch or whatever the other ones are. After a while, it really is feel and using your ears. And I absolutely get my personal best results by using my feel and ears. Although TuneBot I have found very useful for toms, for getting perfect toms in the studio. That can be quite cool.
It's kind of what I'm going for. And if I mute the bottom head, a little growly, right? I could probably work that out, but I think it sounds like a vibe for now. I find that if it's too loose, I can make the snare drum sound like a tom, but when I turn the snares on, it will sound less like a snare drum. If it's too tight, then I find that the response, the air response, or the actual sound frequency is just bouncing back at the drum. It'll feel weird when I hit the drum. So I'm trying to get something that feels good to lay my stick into, a pitch specifically that is lower than rack 2, higher than floor tom, of course, and that when I at least have it on, it's not going to have too much of an effect in terms of when I hit the rack 2. In context with the other toms, if I were to go down from rack 1 to 2 to the snare to the floor, with the main snare off, it sounds like this. And I'll actually play the main snare as well.
So we just got hit with an ad, and Drumeo, they put out a lot of free content. Watch their ads.
Snares on.
Has this guy ever played a bad note though? Even that little demo, just tinkering around the kit, and it just sounds like that. Just clean. Just clean.
So in the context of Snarky Puppy, having 2 snares minimum is really important. A lot of the songs that we do, we have what I like to call vibe changes.
2 snares minimum. Come on, man. The best I can do at my working gigs where I'm setting up kits, often in small venues, is a big fat snare drum. If I need to drastically change the sound of my snare, I just pop a big fat snare on for, the 80s, Def Leppard kind of thing. Or not, take it off and we're nice and open. But 2 snares minimum, jeez.
If we have just any kind of vibe where it needs to kind of have that older 70s funk vibe, kind of like a Motown thing. Or if I need to play something like, let's say, The Sleeper, if I can remember it, because it's been so long. Or even songs like this one.
One thing I love about Larnell when he's playing something relatively simple, the air. The air in his drumming is just magical. I used to hear those kind of terms a lot as I was coming up, this guy's got a lot of air in his playing and the space, and it's what he doesn't play. And I always used to think, what a load of junk, what a load of baloney. You just learn as much as you can and you get faster and faster and faster and you do this and that. It's all about the space. It's all about the space in between the notes, air, and timing, note placement, all those little things that seem like nothing. They seem unimportant when you're coming up, when you're young, but it is everything.
One, which you've never heard of before. So having a different snare sound within the groove helps to vary up what you hear. You still hear a snare, it's still kind of helping to drive the music, but it's a different version. Also, that's why I love having a different color snare head as well. I don't know, it's just a vibe for me to have this black hydraulic in the mix, And so another way that I use this drum is mostly I turn it off. And I use the back end of my stick and I pitch bend the drum.
Dude's playing scales on his toms. Oh, damn.
So for my setup, I decided to make this my own. Making it a unique part of my setup, having the option of a snare drum here on the right side, it isn't something that you see very often. Thanks to Sput, Robert Sput Seawright, for the inspiration. And I would just say, if I inspired you, give it a whirl. If the snare was off, as it mostly is, you wouldn't know that it was an actual snare drum. But at the end of the day, you want to have a setup that's comfortable for you. You want to have access to sounds that are comfortable for you. If you want to put a popcorn snare, 10-inch, whatever you got here, do it. You want to put an electronic pad here or a stack right here, do it. Take the time, explore, and expand.
Couldn't you just listen to Larnell talk drums, or actually talk anything? I think I could listen to Larnell just read the phone book. He's got that kind of radio voice that's just so listenable. and the playing. That last little thing with the hand on the snare and accessing the second snare drum. That's the kind of thing you want. Someone, you just sit down in your friend's kit and he says, hey, yeah, just go play something. And you sit down and go, that's the kind of thing you want to bust out. But, man, the creativity, the musicality, and the openness of ideas. Thanks so much to Drumeo, and thanks so much to Larnell Lewis for the content. Remember, be sure to subscribe. Hit me in the comments with what you think of this. Would this be something you'd consider adding into your kit, into your setup? I'd love to know what you think of it. All right, until next time, ciao for now.